The folding chair had been set up against the wall of the hallway outside Carver Hall's main banquet room, angled slightly toward the fire exit, maybe 12 feet from the nearest trash can. There was a hand-lettered card taped to the back of it. My name, written in my sister's handwriting with a little decorative flourish on the capital and that she'd been doing since middle school. I stood there for a moment and looked at it. The card was precise. She had always had neat handwriting, the kind that looked practiced, and seeing that flourish in a service corridor, taped to a folding chair next to a fire exit, had a specific quality I couldn't have described to anyone. The carpet beneath the chair smelled faintly of adhesive, something chemical and new, like the venue had recently relayed that section of flooring and the smell hadn't fully aired out yet. Through the closed double doors to my left, I could hear the room. Chairs scraping, the low roar of 140 people finding their places, the band doing a sound check somewhere near the front. There was a second chair beside mine, empty, the kind that venues fold and stack and unfold without ceremony, and the small card table next to it had a single water glass on it, already filled, as though someone had wanted the arrangement to look considered. I pressed my thumb against the edge of the envelope I was holding and held it there for a beat before I looked away. I was holding a card envelope. Inside the card was a certified bank transfer receipt for $18,340. Every dollar I had managed to set aside over the last 2 years while also paying the property taxes on 4411 Briscoe Lane, keeping the utilities on, and making sure my mother's prescriptions were filled every month without fail. I had written a short note inside the card. I had signed it with love. I stood there another moment, looking at my name on the chair back. Then I set the card down on the seat. Then I picked up my bag, turned away from the double doors, and walked toward the exit. That was 2:14 p.m. on a Saturday in late October. What happened in the 12 minutes after that was not something I had planned. But I had been preparing for it, without knowing it, for 11 months. My name is Nora Callahan. I was 34 years old that afternoon, and I worked as a licensed property manager for a small residential portfolio firm based in Toledo, which sounds more formal than it was. Mostly I managed rental agreements, handled maintenance coordination, and dealt with the particular kind of human friction that comes when people share walls and contested parking spaces. I was good at it. I had a calm voice and a long memory, and I did not rattle easily. I have one sister. Renee is 3 years younger than me, and she is the kind of person who has always moved through a room like she expected it to have been arranged for her arrival. That is not entirely her fault. Our mother arranged it that way for most of our childhood. Renee was the pretty one, our mother used to say. Not cruelly, just plainly the way you might note the weather, and I was the steady one, and those two roles calcified over time into something neither of us had ever formally agreed to. Our father left when I was 9 and Renee was 6. Our mother, Patricia, raised us alone in the house on Briscoe Lane, a 3-bedroom colonial in Delwood Heights that she had inherited from her own mother and which had sat, untouched in any legal sense, in a kind of informal family trust that nobody had ever properly formalized. The house had been appraised at $647,500 the previous spring. I knew that number because I had scheduled the appraisal myself. Renee moved to Columbus after college and built a life there that looked, from the outside, like the version of success our mother had always quietly hoped for. A good career in marketing, a wide social circle, a fiancé named Derek who wore good shoes and remembered people's names. She came home for Christmas and sometimes Thanksgiving, and she called our mother on Sundays with the reliable warmth of someone performing a duty they genuinely didn't mind. I never left Delwood Heights. That had not been the plan. Exactly, I had intended to move to Cleveland after my own graduation, had a job lined up, had a deposit on an apartment. Then our mother had her first episode and I deferred. And then I deferred again. And at some point the deferral became the life. I am not saying any of this to generate sympathy. I am saying it because the shape of what came later only makes sense if you understand the shape of what came before. When our mother's health began its serious decline, this was about 4 years before Renee's wedding. The logistics of her care fell to me entirely, not because anyone formally assigned them to me, not because there was a family meeting and a division of responsibilities, but because I was there and Renee was not. I was the one who drove Patricia to her cardiology appointments at St. Vincent's, sat in the waiting room with a paperback I never read, drove her home, and filled out the follow-up paperwork at the kitchen table while she slept. I was the one who called the insurance company the 6 times it took to get her supplemental coverage reinstated after an administrative lapse. I was the one who found the contractor who could widen the doorway to the downstairs bathroom without making the hallway impassable, got 3 bids, checked the contractor's license with the state board, and was there on the mornings the work was done. I was the one who learned, over those years, how to hold all of it at once, the appointments and the bills and the small daily adjustments that kept the household running, and to do it without being asked, because by the time something needed doing there was usually no one else to ask. I paid the property taxes on Briscoe Lane out of my own account 2 years running when our mother's fixed income couldn't cover both that and her medication costs in the same month. The amounts were not small. I did not mention this to Renee. I paid it because the alternative was a lien, and a lien on the property would have complicated things considerably, and complicating things was not something I was willing to do to our mother. I managed the rental income from the small garage apartment at the back of the property, for $1,250 a month, paid reliably by a graduate student named Marcus who kept the place immaculate and always paid 4 days early. I deposited that income into an account our mother had nominally controlled but had not actively managed in 3 years. I kept records. I kept very careful records because I had always understood, without anyone saying it plainly, that the time would come when the records would matter. The plain white envelope had been sitting in the glove compartment of my car for 2 months by then, slightly bent at one corner from sitting behind the registration documents. Our mother passed in March, 14 months before Renee's wedding. She died quietly in the downstairs bedroom we had converted for her on a Tuesday evening. I was in the house. I had been in the house every evening for years. I sat with her until the hospice nurse arrived, and then I sat a while longer, and then I made the calls that needed to be made, because that was what needed doing and I was the one who was there. Renee drove up the next morning. She stayed 9 days. She was good in those 9 days, in her way. She handled the flowers, she answered the door when neighbors came, she cried in the way that looks clean and resolved. She said at least twice that she didn't know how I had managed it all. She said it with real feeling. I believed her. In the weeks after the funeral there were conversations, polite ones, careful ones, about the house, about what came next. Our mother had been the kind of woman who kept her important papers in a fireproof box on the closet shelf, and I had gone through that box carefully in the days before Renee arrived. The house had passed to both of us in our mother's original will equally. But there was a second document in that box, a transfer on death designation signed 4 years earlier, when our mother had understood clearly what kind of help she was asking me to stay for. She had named me sole beneficiary. I had been sitting across from her at the kitchen table when she signed it. Renee had been on the witness line. She had been visiting for a weekend, and our mother had asked her to witness some paperwork, and Renee had signed without reading the full document the way people do when they are in a hurry to get back to their lives. I had filed the deed transfer 11 months before the wedding, while the estate was still in my hands as executor. I did it quietly, the way I had done most things in those years, not secretly exactly but without announcement because the kind of work I had been doing had never required an audience. Renee said she thought they should sell the house. She said it made sense, that neither of us needed a house in Delwood Heights anymore, that the market was strong. She said all of this with the reasonable tone of someone proposing a sensible plan that had nothing personal in it whatsoever. I said I would think about it. I did not tell her what I had already done. The invitation to Renee's wedding had come 8 weeks before the date, addressed to me and a guest. I didn't bring a guest. I drove alone from Delwood Heights to Toledo on a clear Saturday in October and arrived at Carver Hall 40 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. A woman at the welcome table found my name on the seating chart and smiled and told me I was in the east hallway. I thought I had misheard her. She pointed. The hallway was a service corridor off the main lobby, carpeted in the same pattern as the banquet room but narrower, lit by a single overhead fixture, with a folding chair and a small table and a sign on an easel that said overflow in looping script, as though that made it something other than what it was. I walked back to the welcome table. There must be a mistake, I said. I'm the bride's sister. The woman looked at her chart again. Ms. Callahan? East hallway, chair 2. Chair 2, I said. There are 2 chairs, she said. Your chair 2. I found Renee near the bridal suite. She was in her dress, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by 4 women in matching sage green. She looked beautiful. She looked like a person who had always known exactly where her chair was. "Renee," I said. "Can I talk to you for a second?" She stepped into the corridor with me, still holding the glass. "What is it?" she said. Not a question. A calendar item. "I'm seated in the hallway," I said. "There wasn't enough room," she said. "We had more RSVPs than we planned for." "I'm your sister." "I know who you are, Nora. You put me in the hallway." She took a small sip of champagne. "You could have brought a +1. We accounted for a +1. "That's not." I stopped. Something went still in my chest, not anger, not yet. Something more like the moment before a calculation resolves, when all the numbers are in the air at once. "Renee, you seated me in a service hallway." "It's perfectly comfortable," she said. "There's a table. There's a trash can." "Nora." She said my name the way you say a word that has stopped meaning anything from overuse. "Not everything is about you. It's my wedding day. Can you not make this a thing?" "I'm not making it a thing. You're standing here doing this face." "What face?" "The face," she said. "The martyr face. The one you've been doing for 4 years. You stayed, Nora. We all know you stayed. You don't have to keep reminding everyone." I looked at her for a moment. "Derek's family came from Connecticut," she said. "We had to prioritize." "Derek's family came from Connecticut," I repeated. "They traveled." "I see. You live 20 minutes away." It's not the same." She touched her hair, checking a pin. "Besides, you can see everything through the window and the door. And the food is the same. We're not treating you differently, we just needed the space." I looked at the window and the door. It was approximately the size of a paperback book. "Okay," I said. She studied me. "Okay." "Okay," I said again. She went back to her bridesmaids. I walked to the hallway. I looked at the folding chair, the hand-lettered card with the decorative N, the empty chair beside mine, the full water glass that was supposed to make it look considered. I set my card on the seat of the folding chair. I left. I walked through the lobby and out the main entrance. The air outside was cold and flat, the way October air gets when the sun is already halfway gone by mid-afternoon. I crossed the parking lot to my car. I opened the driver's side door. I sat down in the seat. I did not start the engine. I sat for a moment with my hands in my lap, looking at the lobby entrance through the windshield. Then I reached across to the glove compartment and pressed the release. I took out the plain white envelope, letter-sized, slightly bent at one corner from sitting behind the registration documents for 2 months. I looked at it. The county stamp on the upper left corner was still crisp. I turned it over once. I closed the glove compartment. I closed the car door. I stood in the parking lot for a moment with the envelope in my hand. The afternoon had a low, flat quality to it, the kind of October light that makes everything look slightly more permanent than it is. A van from the catering company was parked at the service entrance, and 2 men in black were rolling a cart toward the kitchen door. Everything moved the way things move at events, smoothly, invisibly, as though the whole operation had been rehearsed. Then I walked back inside. I crossed the lobby. I did not go toward the hallway. I went to the entrance of the banquet room and asked the usher at the door if he could let the bride know her sister needed to speak with her before the ceremony. He looked uncertain. I gave him a specific look, not unfriendly, just clear, and he went. Renee came out 2 minutes later, Derek at her elbow, both of them wearing the mild irritation of people whose schedule is being disrupted. "What now?" Renee said. "I just need a minute," I said. "Just you." Derek looked at Renee. She waved him off. He went back inside, glancing over his shoulder once, and the door fell closed behind him. We were standing in the lobby near the welcome table. The woman with the seating chart had moved away. We were essentially alone. "I thought you left," Renee said. "I did," I said. "I came back." "Nora." I have something for you, I said. A wedding gift. I wanted to give it to you in person. I reached into my bag. I took out the white envelope. I opened my phone to the document storage app, tapped through 2 folders, and brought up a scanned PDF, the Lucas County Clerk's recording confirmation, time-stamped, showing a deed transfer that had been recorded 11 months earlier. I held the phone toward her so she could read the screen, then set the envelope on the welcome table and laid it flat and open so she could see the hard copy inside, the original letter, county-stamped in the upper left corner on official letterhead. Renee looked at the phone. Then at the paper. Then at me. What is this? She said. You said we should sell the house, I said. You were right that one of us didn't need a house in Delwood Heights anymore. She picked up the paper. Her eyes moved across it. The color in her face shifted the way color shifts when a thought arrives and the body reacts before the mind finishes processing it. You transferred it, she said. You transferred Mom's house to yourself. 11 months ago, I said. While the estate was still open. I was the executor. Mom left the house to both of us equally in her original will, but she also signed a transfer on death designation 4 years ago, naming me sole beneficiary, when I agreed to stay and manage her care. You were there when she signed it. You signed the witness line. Her face had changed. The champagne glass was still in her hand, loose at her side. I forgot about that, she said. I know, I said. You can't just, she stopped. I said nothing. I stood still and let the silence hold. You kept that, she said. Her voice had dropped. You just kept that and didn't say anything. You didn't ask, I said. You told me we should sell. I said I'd think about it. I thought about it. That's ungrateful, she said. The word came out sharp, then seemed to surprise her. After everything, after I let you live there, after I never pushed you to. I waited. You let me, I said quietly. She opened her mouth. You flew home the morning after she died, I said. You were there for 9 days. I was there for 4 years. I handled the appointments and the taxes and the contractor and the insurance calls and the prescriptions and the lease and every decision that needed to be made for 4 years, and I did it without asking you for anything. The transfer on death designation is a matter of public record. Mom signed it. You witnessed it. The recording is 11 months old. I took my phone back. I put the envelope back in my bag. I'm not saying this to hurt you, I said. I'm saying it so you understand why I'm not sitting in the hallway. I picked up my car keys. You always said I stayed, I said. You were right. I did. I met her eyes for a moment, steady, no performance in it, and then I turned and walked out. 4 months later, I was on the back porch of 4411 Briscoe Lane on a Sunday morning, painting the new railing I had installed along the porch steps the previous weekend. The railing was cedar, rough cut, and I had sanded it myself over 3 evenings. The paint was a deep charcoal gray. I was using a wide brush my mother had kept in the garage for 20 years, the bristles still good because she had always cleaned her brushes properly and put them away correctly, the way she did most things that mattered. The Lucas County recording letter was in the fireproof lockbox in the upstairs closet, where it had been for 15 months now. I didn't need to look at it. I knew what it said. Renee called once, 6 weeks after the wedding. She didn't leave a voicemail. I saw the missed call on a Tuesday evening while I was sitting at the kitchen table with the lease renewal Marcus had brought over. He wanted to extend another year and had asked if the rent would stay the same. I set the phone face down on the table and went back to the paperwork. I told Marcus yes, the rent would stay the same. The second railing post took longer than the first. The cedar had a slight bow to it and I had to clamp it twice to get the line right. I stepped back when it was done and looked at the full length of the railing, post to post, and it was straight. The yard behind the house was quiet in the way that Sunday mornings in Delwood Heights are quiet. Not empty, just unhurried, the sound of a neighbor's lawnmower 2 houses down, a car turning onto Briscoe Lane and slowing for the crosswalk at the corner. I had not spoken to Renee since the lobby of Carver Hall. I did not expect that to change, and I found I had made my peace with the shape of it. Not because it didn't cost me anything, but because I had learned, somewhere in those 4 years of staying, that some debts don't get repaid and some witness lines are more binding than anyone realizes when they pick up the pen. There are things you sign your name to that you cannot unsign, whether you read them carefully or not. The document had been real. The years had been real. What I had built with both hands, and it was still standing. If any of this sounds familiar to you, if you have ever been the one who stayed, if you have ever signed your name to something that everyone else forgot about, share this story. Someone needs to hear it. I stood there with my hands on the cedar railing and let the morning be what it was,